All right, welcome back to Kestra, everybody. Thanks again for tuning in. This video, we will be going over the preparation instructions for Amanita Muscaria. So this is our favorite preparation technique by far because of the following, and we've tried out a lot of different techniques. First, it provides a standardized and reliable dosing experience, which eliminates the gamble of eating raw caps, which in our last video, we mentioned how volatile and unpredictable that can be. This method also leaves you the options to create different experiences, which range from a stimulating tea with higher levels of ibotenic acid to a fully converted muscimol only experience that is purely relaxing and dream-inducing. So let's jump right in. The items that you will need for this are a large pot for the stovetop, a blender, ideally an immersion blender, but a regular blender is fine, a 75 micron nylon bag for straining, or cheesecloth can be used, but it's way less convenient, a juice press, ideally a hydraulic jack, although you can just use your hands instead of using a crazy high-priced hydraulic jack, a measuring cup, jar, or beaker to measure the water you use before brewing and to measure what you have after brewing, a bottle or jar to store the final tea, preferably glass, and of course your dried caps, preferably around 100 grams, but any amount is fine. Just make sure you know the weight. If you have less than 100 grams, that's okay. I just like using 100 grams because it's a bigger batch, and a bigger batch is better than a smaller one for two main reasons. One, making bigger batches reduces how often you need to do this preparation, and two, the more weight you use, the more standardized the tea will be, making dosing more reliable. So let's get started with the process. So first we begin by adding the dried caps to a large pot on the stovetop. Don't turn the heat on yet though, and don't add any water. Just add the caps to the pot. Pretty simple. You can break up the caps if you want, but if you have a blender, it's totally unnecessary, as you'll see in a little bit. Now you can add enough water to cover most of the caps. I find that about 13 milliliters per gram is good enough, so for 100 grams, about 1300 milliliters should be great. Tap water is actually preferable here. Now you can turn the heat on to medium-high. You want to end up on a low simmer, not boiling, because boiling will start to destroy the compounds. So once you start to see the beginnings of a low rolling boil, bring the heat back down to low for the duration of this process. You want like a slow, steady simmer, not a rolling boil. So once you have it down to a simmer, set a timer for 37 minutes. After it simmers for around 10 minutes or so, you can use your blender to make a puree. The immersion blender is better here because you don't need to transfer it at all. This step is not really required to blend it, but it will theoretically make slightly stronger tea due to increased surface area. So once your timer is up, turn off the heat and take the pot off the burner. You are almost done except for the filtering of the tea in the micron bag, or the cheesecloth if you decided to cheap out. So now filter the liquid using the micron bag. Squeezing as much out of the mushroom paste puree is preferable and is actually one of the more important steps thought to be utilized in the creation of Soma juice from the Vedic texts. If you don't believe me, refer to the link I put in the description. If you are using your hands to squeeze the bag for filtering, like most of you probably are, unless you bought a hydraulic press or something like that, it's best to let the tea cool first unless you want to burn your hands. If you have a hydraulic press, you don't need to wait for it to cool, obviously. Squeezing out as much liquid as you can from the mushroom puree, or if you didn't blend it from the mushroom pieces, will just yield more tea. It will probably yield a little bit more potent tea. But don't go too crazy on it. It's fine if there's still a little bit of water left in the mushrooms. Now that all of the tea is filtered out of the mushrooms and you just have liquid left, pour that into a measuring vessel we mentioned at the beginning of the video. This is for dosing purposes, just so you know how much you have. Once you measure it, you can now pour it into your bottle or jar and store it in the refrigerator.
Yeah.
In the refrigerator, the tea should be used within 5 days or so. After 5 days, it starts to degrade and lose potency. If you're storing it in the freezer, it keeps much longer, probably up to a month or so is a safe bet. And obviously using plastic bottles is a better choice than glass in the freezer. So this tea is considered to be around a 50% conversion of ibotenic acid, which I love as a starting off point. I actually leave the tea alone and just use it as is for daytime use. Muscimol concentration is actually varied. There's still some in there, obviously. In general, with my research subjects, I like to start with around the equivalent of 3 grams of mushrooms. In this case, you need to do the math of how many grams of mushrooms are in each milliliter, which you can easily do based on how many mushrooms you use to begin with and how much liquid you have left in your tea. Once again, be advised that this tea as is will have an effect that will be more suitable for daytime activities, such as creative endeavors or even working out. Thank you, ibotenic acid. Okay, thank you for tuning in again, and stay tuned for our next video for the simple additional step to convert this tea into a muscimol only product, which is really easy. We'll see you soon.